What is poppin', people? You got Jay Bear here, bringing you all Shuckle Premier League Week 2 draft notes, where we go over Week 1's results and then make some predictions for Week 2. And I hope that you guys are enjoying the Almost Any Ability season so far. I know I have really enjoyed the chance to see some crazy Pokemon shine. I'll go over especially those matchups in the following section. But before we get there, I wanted to first give a spoiler warning. I'm going to do my little self plug, and then after that I will just go straight into spoilers. So this is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the 4 games yet, I ask that you do that so that we can get on with this discussion. But yeah, if you have not already, I just ask that you please subscribe for it just makes me happy, and leave a comment, leave a like, all that YouTube jazz. I just like interacting with you guys. I like hearing everyone's thoughts on this Almost Any Ability season. It's so cool seeing some of these Pokemon actually like do things when like that they normally don't do. I'll talk about it a little bit, but just like seeing some crazy Pokemon clutch out some crazy scenarios has already been great in Week 1. And yeah, I'm ready to show you guys what happened and talk about each of these 4 games. So our first game, we saw Shuckle King play Callum. Callum's been out of Draft League. He does his 1 Draft League a year. Shuckle King, obviously a mainstay of the Draft League community. It was nice seeing Callum back on the scene, and it looked like a pretty good game for the first opening sequence. We had Callum get out. I believe he got out ahead with the Iron Crown. It O-code Pyroar. Man, that's a resist. It's a tinted lens, so it doesn't actually resist, but Pyroar couldn't even do anything, but then Shuckle was actually just able to lock him down with Golden Go. Golden Go went absolutely ham with the Hadron engine boost. It was able to just nasty plot up and throw down some crazy damage, and ultimately Shuckle was able to take that first game, be 1-0, and take it in a 3-0 fashion. Up next was Iron Boffin going up against Pokemon. And this one was another crazy game where we got to see Latios, of all Pokemon, go absolutely ham. Joey led the Ogerpon up against Galarian Weezingly. They traded some hazards, a little bit of chip, like that. And then Latios comes in off of the onto when Ogerpon brings it on Zapdos. And first of all, Latios took Toxic Spikes, which I could not wrap my head around. Same thing happened in the Swave Live game where Latios took Toxic Spikes. Like, my head just, it like kind of hurt from that one, seeing those Pokemon take the Toxic Spike. But Latios took the Toxic Spike and then clicks Soul Dew, Hadron Engine, Luster Purge, and takes Zapdos down from like 85, which is absolutely an insane calc to see just Latios outputting that much damage. Obviously, it's an offensive Zapdos, seeing it was, I believe, no guard. So it was, but it just kind of died. Entei was a little bit of a highlight for Boffin being able to pick off Ogerpon and certainly threatening Joey in a lot of that game. Volcanion was pretty cool, getting a chance to come in on the kill the Swampert that came in to set the rain. Unfortunately, Crawdont died because any human in their right mind would have thought the Zapdos dying to the Luster Purge, oh, it specs Latios. So it brings in the Crawdont for it, unfortunately, to just get energy balled. But ultimately, we saw Joey, be able to close out that game with Latios. Kind of scammed an additional kill with the Latios, but didn't end up actually impacting the result of the game beyond maybe a differential point. But yeah, that was Joey going up to that 1-0 bracket. Up next, we see Swave versus Liv. And in this one, Swave was able to get off to a very, very strong start with the combination of, Thundurus making an early call on Great Tusk, living the Ice Spinner, knowing that he lived the Ice Spinner and could just pop back with a Weather Ball and pick it off, and then setting up for a scenario where that Drizzle Thundurus could help the Archaludon go for a late game sweep, and it started electroshotting, but unfortunately Sinistra had other plans because the Arch wasn't faster than Sinistra, which meant that Swift Swim Arch wasn't faster than +2 Cha, or not Sinistra, Poltegeist. So when that Poltegeist had its Shadow Shield with the Heavy Duty Boots to get up a Shell Smash, I thought the game was going to be lost for Swave, but ultimately Skuntank was able to win the game because Strengths have actually fails if the opponents have -6 attack, which I didn't know. But Swift was actually able to clutch it up because the knockoff eventually, the Sinistcha wasn't, or the Poltegeist, sorry, wasn't able to recover, and he was able to clutch that one out with the help of Vessel of Ruin Skuntank. Call that guy Ting Poo, I think is what they were saying. But ultimately, just, yeah, a very funny game to see. Very close. Could have gone either way. If the Sinistcha, or if the Poltegeist maybe could have gotten a little bit more set up, I don't know if it would have been able to live some hits, but who knows. And then the last game of the week, Seabad versus Nexus. Things got off to a really good start for Nexus. He was in with his Thunders, which I believe was Primordial Sea this week, and Seabad just didn't have a switch into that Thunder. Got off like a last-ditch Tailwind with the Corviknight, but ultimately that Corviknight, which I think was super important in this matchup, got sniped very early, which allowed Nexus to kind of play the game a little bit more freely after that Tailwind expired. There wasn't a whole lot that Seabad could do. It was still like a very close game. Seabad was by all means like playing it very well, especially with his No Guard Infernape, Gunk Shot, Focus Blast, you know, having those moves never miss. Very, very nice. But ultimately, the Slitherwing was actually able to clutch it out over the Jolteon in the end game with the Hadron Engine boost, I believe. And yeah, just Slitherwing able to close combat through the Jolteon and the Iron Leaves, which was sharpness boosting, so it wasn't surge surfing on that Hadron, which maybe could have gotten things a little bit dicey. But yeah, so overall 3-1 week on the pick'ems. So we're on rate. We're gonna need to keep that up if I want to hit my 16-8 goal at least. And right now we'd be on pace for 18-6, but I have a feeling that it's going to be challenging, you know, with the volatility of this league, for me to even keep up that level of pick'ems, my goal level, let alone the actual. But yeah, we can get into our first matchup of the following week, where we see Shuckle King going up against Iron Boffin. And on Shuckle's side, he's got a couple of great options. I really wanted to highlight the Screamtail here with Pixelate boosted Boom Bursts. I think it can do a lot of work, even though its special attack may not be that high. Just being able to come in and fire off the Boom Burst when the Steel type is Cobalion, so it's not resistant. It means that there's not a dual stabs resist to this thing, because like Galarian Weezing can just get psychicked. Maybe AV like Flip Turn Pert can kind of do a good job, but then it's like, what are you flip turning into? I believe Boffin's team caps out at 110 speed, so the 111 speed Screamtail in a fantastic position. And then I believe the Golden Go also looks nice. Swampert's going to kind of have to like really be like an AV pivot into that guy. I think Earth Eater makes a lot of sense this week, or I forget if he's like Earth Eater or Levitate, but the ground immunity looks really nice. I also really like the adaptability Mamoswine this week, being able to keep Garchomp, Ogerpon, Zapdos all in check with like strong Ice Shard seems really nice. And of course, while you do have to consider the Cobalt doesn't have ground immunity. I thought, no, because it has Surge Surfer and Magic Guard. So yeah, no, the Mamoswine with the adaptability looks really, really good here for Shuckle King as well. I think those are all a bunch of very solid offensive pieces. And then of course, Galarian Zapdos, unfortunately, it's like kind of checked by its Cantonian counterpart. But I think it can still probably do enough damage to power through. And then of course, Ogerpon always looks good. Dragalge, probably one of the better pivots into the Zapdos, come in, flip, turn out with your regen, and look pretty promising. I don't see Incin doing anything. Maybe it's decent into Entei, but other than that, and like Clef maybe has play into Garchomp, but I think Garchomp with the Sword of Ruin gets past Clefable a little bit too well. And then Pyroar, Cacturne, I don't foresee them coming here. And then on Boffin's side, I like his Zapdos. I think it matches up quite well into both the Galarian Zapdos and the Golden Go of Shuckle King. Being able to, I think you're probably going to, No Guard and Primordial Sea both are very valid ability choices here. No Guard, Heat Wave, you can get through like Golden Go and Mamoswine, and like Hurricane probably also does quite well into that Mamoswine. Whereas the Primordial Sea gets you like a Weather Ball that, I don't think that Water Weather Ball, you need it for Mamoswine. I think Heat Wave probably does enough. But either way, I think Dragalge is enough of a specially defensive sponge where you're probably just gonna want to be like U-turn into Garchomp for at least a little bit of this game, and I think that play pattern is something that Boffin can really look to capitalize on, or like U-turn into Entei potentially, depending on what the checks are. U-turn into Ogerpon for some spikes could be really nice, or just U-turn into Garchomp for the spikes. Hell, we can do it all here. I think that, but like because when I'm like shouting these Pokemon out, and I think the best thing that Zapdos is going to do for a large portion of the game is just get momentum, whereas I think Shuckle's like wall breaking power is a little bit more immediately potent, and Boffin also has to worry about like Ice Shard Mammo coming in and like revenging everything that like I think does the best at making progress, bar like Entei. I think that this will be a game that I'm going to pick Shuckle King for. Up next, Swave going up against Callum. And in this one, I really like the Archaludon from Swave. This is a SPL 3 All-Star, man. Like, but looking at it in SPL 4, I think it can do a lot of the same here. I think just Primordial Sea is probably fine. Swift Swim, you know, it's nice. You're able to, like, get that speed boost, but I just like Primordial Sea, and then you're able to just, like, Electro Shot boost up, even if it's, like, something that might thud into. The Electro Shot's quite nice. Maybe the Porygon 2 can take stuff. Maybe the Iron Hands can take stuff. But long term, the checks to this thing aren't the best, especially if you like fit on that body press. That I could even see like Primordial Sea with like Iron Defense body press, so you can get through the Ting-Lu a little bit better, get through maybe Porygon a little bit better. But the one thing that this Pokemon can be like concerning with is just kind of like taking too much from the Crown attacks, which I think a lot of Swave's team takes a lot from Crown moves, but I think he'll be able to, you know, capitalize with this Archaludon and make him kind of pay for getting that crown in. And then on Cal's side, I wanted to shout out the Cinderace here, which I think looks really nice. Thundurus is probably the most annoying thing for it if it's Primordial Sea, but if it's Primordial Sea, then it's not being able to enable like Swift Swim Arch, or no, the Arch is a Primordial Sea, the Thundy is the Drizzle. Yeah, but if it's Primordial Sea Arch, it can still get high jump kicked or low kicked. And then other than that, just like being able to click Pyro Ball looks really, really nice into a lot of this team. And then you just U-turn out on the Manaphy. Regen Manaphy can be annoying here, but like just U-turn into like Tinted Lens Crown looks like a very, very promising play pattern here for Callum. Because like obviously Tinted Lens Crown is like unguardable. There's no Steel Quad resist in this matchup. So that means Tachyon is just very, very free to click. Any way that you can get it in is super nice. I also like the idea of like a slow pivot for Porygon, being able to do that for him as well. I think that Ting-Lu has a bit of a like important role here, checking Thundurus and the Arch, although, you know, it will probably get worn down a little bit, but obviously Regenerator to fix that issue. So I think that he has like decent checks to things, but I don't know who I want to pick here. Let me deliberate a little bit from my commentary. I feel like going off it, like kind of how I just talked about the Boffin game, I probably should pick Swave here, because where I was talking about, you know, Swave's best guy grabbing momentum as opposed to, or Callum's best guy grabbing momentum as opposed to Swave's best guy kind of, you know, winning. I think that it's probably a similar situation to that Boffin versus Shuckle game, where I think that, you know, Swave's team will be a little bit more well prepared to capitalize on this matchup. Alrighty, our third matchup of the week is going to be Seabad versus Pokeaim here, and I really like Seabad's Gardevoir, man. Not like that. Pause. But I really like the matchup that it has here, with especially Tinted Lens. I think Tinted Lens Moonblast is going to be a great use of this thing. Makes it so like Tinkaton doesn't come in as easily. It still does come in, but I think the Tinkaton overall has a pretty challenging time into Infernape and Ironmoth. Oh, I think I might be ahead on transactions. My bad, Seabad. Might have spoiled your transaction, but I'm not gonna talk about it too much. I don't think it matters. I think there's like a Regirock in place of the Probopass and the Leavanny, but I think that ultimately we will be able to see the Gardevoir, if it can get in, especially like the combination of the Ironmoth or the Infernape grabbing momentum into this Gardevoir, going to make it a little bit unguardable for Pokeaim to deal with it, because obviously the Volcanion will just take like neutral from the Moonblast and not really be able to recover. And then the Tinkaton with regen is already going to be like having a bit of a tough task checking Petch, because that Petron is going to like be coming in, partying out into like the Iron Moth, which also looks like it's going to do a lot of work here. But I really like the card. Also has the niche of coming in on Latios. I don't know how well it can come in on Latios. Truth be told, the Hadron Engine Thunderbolts might just be a lot for it, or the Tinted Lens, Tinted Lens Luster Purge could be a bit annoying for it. And obviously it's your fairy into the Hydreigon, which can make Hydreigon a bit scary. So I almost shouted out two of Joey's Dragons. I shouted out Latios last week, but I will instead shout out SPL3 All-Star 2 Terrakion. We just talked about Archaludon already, and now Terrakion. And this Terrakion looks absolutely insane. The stabs just kind of nuke everything. Especially compounding the fact that, you know, your best rock stab isn't going to make contact with the fluffy Pecharunt. And I think Pecharunt still might just wall you, but like I think the Terrakion has options, you know, given the fact that it does have additional multipliers from those abilities that it has, I believe, the Sword of Ruin, to be able to actually get through the Pecharunt a little bit more efficiently. So I do think that this Terrakion has a lot of promise for Pokéaim. And then obviously the dragons that I couldn't I couldn't shout out all of them. And then Tinkaton, I think those four will be a very potent combination that I don't know if Seabad really has the answers for. And you throw in like an Ogerpon or a Volcanion or something like that, and you look like you'll be pretty good. I do think that I trust Joey to take this one. And so that'll be my third prediction of this week. And now my final one. We see Nexus going up against Liv. I know these two are great friends, so it's always nice to see like two great friends duke it out. And this is a very interesting matchup for them. Liv's Great Tusk, I think, was made for this moment, having the thick fat specifically for the Chien-Pao, because outside of that, Chien-Pao kind of just rakes here, right? But I really like the Thunderous on Nexus's side of things. U-turn, electric, water. What's the answer to it? I guess like Raikou technically, but like Raikou sucks, right? And you can also just like U-turn on out and get in like Volt Absorb Prim. Looks pretty good. Can just wall Raikou. We saw that last week with a Motor Drive Manaphy just absolutely goobing the Raikou. This week I think the Prim can do that role quite well. I also looked at Azelf and I thought that guy looks really solid. Just a little bit hard because being slower than Meow is annoying, and I feel like the best sets you don't want to like have to run Scarf, but I think it also looks pretty nice. Skarm looks really nice, being able to check the Great Tusk quite nicely. And then Ursaluna probably is the I don't know if you necessarily can beat Heatran that's Earth Eater or Levitator, I forget which one Liv is, but the ground immune Heatran, you might need to rely on Prim for that, but then if Prim's forced to regen, then it can make Raikou a bit more potent. So maybe this is Vileplume's game off the bench. I think Nexus has a lot of good factors here in a great matchup. And then obviously Chien-Pao is Chien-Pao, right? Like there's not much that that can be said about that guy that is negative, you know? And then on Liv's side, it's the Meowscarada that I really wanted to shout out. Once you get past the Skarmory, this thing kind of just rakes. Skarmory and I guess the Slitherwing. Slitherwing I think is a bit harder to fit onto the build this week, and Skarmory should probably be tasked with checking Great Tusk. So I think being able to pop that Great Tusk earlier, or being able to pop the Skarmory down earlier, this Meowscarada can do well. And of course, like you still have coverage for the Skarmory in the form of Thunder Punch. Without the Protean, is probably not going to do much. You're probably looking at like 35-40% if you're Sword of Ruin. And then like from there, the stab should be able to like take out most of the rest of the team. You do have to be very nervous like about Chien-Pao as well. Oh, the Delta Stream Enam might also come into clutch there. I think you know, it's like similar bulk profile, I believe, to Great Tusk is probably better at like taking the hits, and can probably wear an item that isn't boots to do that as well. But I think I like Nexus's matchup profile here a little bit more than Olivia's, so I will go with Nexus to be our final victor here. That is my predictions for the Shuckle Premier League Week 2. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I look forward to watching these games and then recapping them next week. Peace!